Section 22 of Journal of the Reverend Francis Asbury, Volume 2. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Brian Keenan. Friday, 29. Rode 19 miles and preached at Mrs. Cox's barn. The next day we reached Brother Mooring's in Surrey. Sunday, December 1. My mind was in a state of heaviness. I endeavored to preach on 2 Corinthians 13:5. It is heavy times here, but the work is the Lord's, and I wish to leave it all to Him. In discoursing on the above text, I pursued nearly the following method. 1. Such as profess to have experienced religion should examine whether they have not let some fundamental doctrines slip. 2. Examine into the nature and effects of faith. It is the substance of things hoped for, in a penitent state, and the evidence of things not seen in a justified state. 3. They should know themselves, whether they are seekers, believers, or backsliders. 4. They should prove themselves, to their ministers, the world, and the Church of God. 5. That if they have heart religion, Christ is in them, the meek, loving, pure mind of Christ. Monday, 2. Came to Ellison's Chapel in Sussex. Tuesday, 3. Preached at Lane's Chapel. It was low times and cold weather. Thence to my old friend Moss's, near Sussex Courthouse. I have lately read Blair's sermons, where I find some very beautiful things. They contain good moral philosophy, and his sermon on gentleness is worthy the taste of Queen Charlotte. And if money were anything towards paying for knowledge, I should think that sermon worth £200 sterling, which some say the Queen gave him. Thursday, 5. After riding several miles out of my way, I came to dear brother and sister Parham's, 2 Israelites indeed. I was unwell, yet spent the evening comfortably. Next day I had a long ride to Pelham's in Greensville, where I enlarged to a small, serious congregation on 2 Corinthians 12:15, the grand subjects of the faithful minister's care. Saturday, 7. Rode through the rain to Woolsey's barn, now Dromgoole's chapel. Next day we had but 20 miles to ride for our Sabbath day's journey. Came to Roanoke and enlarged on Ephesians 3:7-8, in which I showed, first, how a minister of Christ is made; second, to whom he is to preach; third, what he is to preach, namely, the unsearchable riches of Christ; fourth, the humble opinion the ministers of Christ entertain of themselves. North Carolina, Monday, 9. Crossed Roanoke in a flat, with 7 horses, but we were mercifully preserved. Came to Warrenton. I had a violent pain in my head, and, my horse's back being injured, I stopped at Myrick's, having ridden only 20 miles. Tuesday, 10. Came to Louisburg and held our conference at Green Hills, about a mile from town. Great peace and unity prevailed amongst us. The preachers cheerfully signed an instrument expressing their determination to submit to and abide by what the General Conference has done. Friday, 13. Our conference rose. It was agreed that the next conference should be held in Petersburg. There the preachers from North Carolina, Greenbrier, the Center and South Districts of Virginia may all meet, and change properly, and unite together for their own and the people's good. Saturday, 14. Rode to Father P. B.'s. Oh, that the last days of ancient Methodists may be the best. I have a cold and pains, but there is ease in peace, and love, and communion with God. Sunday, 15. We had as many people at Father B.'s as we could find room for. I delivered some alarming words from Isaiah 65:2. Monday, 16. Rode up the Neuse, fed at Tompkins's, and hasted to the Widow Carson's, about 40 miles. Tuesday, 17. After riding about 26 miles to ours, I gave them a short discourse on "The Foundation of God Standeth Sure." After eating, we had to ride 16 or 18 miles in the evening home with Brother McGee. In the morning we crossed Deep River in a flat, not without danger. Thence down Caraway Creek to Randolphtown. Thence to Huary at Fuller's Ford. Here we were assisted by some young men with a canoe. Thank the Lord, both men and horses were preserved. The young men sometimes prayed and sometimes swore. After riding 3 miles, came to woods, but Russell's was the place of preaching, where I found some who had heard me in Virginia many years past. I labored to speak, although my throat was very sore. The hearts of the people appeared to be cold, as well as their bodies. Friday, 20. I had to ride 30 miles by 2 o'clock, but was so poorly I declined preaching. Saturday and Sunday I spent at I. Randall's. I gave place to brothers M.K. and B. On Sunday evening I gave the family a discourse at W. Randall's. Monday, 23. Crossed Rocky River. This is a bold stream. It rises in Mecklenburg, North Carolina, and, after running 80 or 90 miles, empties itself into Pee a little below Montgomery. South Carolina. Came to Blakeney's, on the waters of Lynch's Creek. Here I preached to about 40 people, it being Christmas Day. Thursday, 26. We crossed various branches which empty into Pee about 10 miles below Port's Ferry. We passed the Hanging Rock to J.H.'s. Friday, 27. We set out at sunrise. The weather was cold and frosty. We made it 22 miles to Camden. After dinner we crossed the river and came to Marshall's. Saturday, 28. We set out very early and came through Pine and Oak Barrens, 25 miles. About 1 o'clock I was willing to sit down and rest. I have lately felt all the grace I had put to trial. Through mercy I am kept from sin, and long to be perfect in faith and patience, love and suffering. I am sometimes tempted to wish to die, but I fear it is wrong. I rather choose to wait the Lord's time. Sunday, 29. With some difficulty I attended at the meeting house near Marshall's. Monday, 30. We rode 45 miles to Brother Cook's, on Broad River, and the next day to Brother Finch's. Here we are to have about 30 preachers from South Carolina and Georgia. We were straitened for room, having only 12 feet square to confer, sleep, and for the accommodation of those who were sick. Brother B. was attacked with the dysentery. Wednesday, January 1, 1794. We removed Brother B. into a room without fire. We hastened the business of our conference as fast as we could. After sitting in a close room with a very large fire, I retired into the woods nearly an hour, and was seized with a severe chill, an inveterate cough and fever, with a sick stomach. With difficulty I sat in conference the following day, and I could get but little rest. Brother B.'s moving so frequently, and the brethren's talking, disturbed me. Sick as I was, I had to ordain 4 elders and 6 deacons. Never did I perform with such a burden. I took a powerful emetic. I was attended by Dr. D. I found I must go somewhere to get rest. The day was cloudy and threatened snow. However, Brother R. E. and myself made out to get 7 miles to dear old Brother A. Yeargin's house. The next day came on a heavy fall of snow, which continued 2 days, and was from 6 to 10 inches deep. I had to let some blood. I made use of flaxseed and afterward of betony tea, both which were of use to me. I must be humble before the Lord, and have great searching of heart. Monday, 13. Rode 30 miles, although the weather was damp and unpromising, and came to Herbert's store, on Broad River. I was so weak that my exercise and clothing almost overcame me. The next day we passed Connolly's Ferry, and got nothing for ourselves until we had ridden 46 miles to Colonel Rumpf's, where we had everything, and were free and comfortable. Sunday 19. Rode to the Cypress, where I could not rest without giving them a little sermon. Monday 20. I reached the city of Charleston. Here I began to rest. My cold grew better. Dr. Ramsay directed me to the use of laudanum, nitre, and bark, after cleansing the stomach with an emetic. The kindness of Sister Hughes was very great. I have written largely to the West, and declined visiting those parts this year. The American Alps, the deep snows, and great rains, swimming the creeks and rivers, riding in the night, sleeping on the earthen floors, more or less of which I must experience if I go to the western country, might at this time cost me my life. I have only been able to preach 4 times in 3 weeks. I have had sweet peace at times since I have been here. The love of meetings, especially those for prayer, the increase of hearers, the attention of the people, my own better feelings, and the increasing hope of good that prevails among the preachers lead me to think that the needy shall not always be forgotten, nor the expectation of the poor fail. I have been pleased in reading Prince's Christian History, of about 400 pages. It was a cordial to my soul in the time of my affliction. It is Methodism in all its parts. I have a great desire to reprint an abridgment of it, to show the apostate children what their fathers were. I have read Gordon's History of the American Revolution. Here we view the suffering straits of the American army, and, what is greatly interesting, General Washington's taking his farewell of his officers. What an affecting scene! I could not but feel through the whole of the description. What, then, was the sight? Oh, how minds are made great with affliction and suffering! Poor Beverly Allen, who has been going from bad to worse these 7 or 8 years, speaking against me to preachers and people, and writing to Mr. Wesley and Dr. Coke, and being thereby the source of most of the mischief that has followed. And lastly, having been agent for Mr. Blank, is now secured in jail for shooting Major Forsyth through the head. The major was marshal for the federal court in Georgia, and was about to serve a writ upon B.A. The masterpiece of all is, a petition is prepared, declaring him to have shown marks of insanity previous to his killing the major. The poor Methodists also must unjustly be put to the rack on his account, although he has been expelled from amongst us these 2 years. I have had my opinion of him these 9 years, and gave Dr. C. my thoughts of him before his ordination. I pray for him, that, if his life be given up to justice, his soul may yet be saved. Friday, February 14. I enjoy peace of mind, and am closely employed in reading my Bible, and a collection of sermons delivered at Berry Street, 1733, by Watts, Gaius, Jennings, Neal, Hubbard, and Price, containing upwards of 500 pages. Sunday 16. I preached in the morning on Philippians 2:30, and in the evening again. I was tried in spirit. I had not more than 100 white people to hear me. Brother S. and myself let loose, and according to custom they fled. They cannot, they will not, endure sound doctrine. Monday 17, I was employed in reading and visiting. Tuesday 18. I feel restless to move on, and my wish is to die in the field. I have had a time of deep dejection of spirits, affliction of body, loss of sleep, and trouble of soul. I have, in the course of my stay here, had frequent visits from the blacks, among whom I find some gracious souls. Wednesday 19. I find this to be a barren place. I long to go to my work. When gloomy melancholy comes on, I find it best to think as little as may be about distressing subjects. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday I visited sundry families. It seems as if a strange providence holds me here. I am sometimes afraid to eat, drink, or even to talk, unless it be of God and religion. I shall certainly feel a paradise when I go hence. I am not unemployed, yet I might be much better occupied for God and souls. Tuesday, 25. Last evening we had a love feast, and the poor Africans spoke livingly of the goodness of God. I am now preparing to leave this city, where I have experienced consolation, afflictions, tribulations, and labor. Friday, 28. I now leave Charleston, the seat of Satan, dissipation, and folly. 10 months hereafter, with the permission of divine providence, I expect to see it again. My horse proving unruly and unwilling to take the boat to Hadrill's Point, we changed our course, crossed at Clemens Ferry, and then came the road to Lenore's Ferry. We passed the plantations of the Great, lying east and west, their rice fields under water. We got no refreshment until we came to S's, 34 miles, except the little our horses got at the ferry. Saturday, March 1. We set out in great spirits, having 16 miles to the ferry, where we were detained 6 hours. We hoped to have been in Georgetown by sunset. Now we thought of traveling until midnight. We came to Cedar Creek, which we found in a bad state. We stayed at the ferry, being persuaded we could not reach Georgetown time enough for meeting. Sabbath morning. We directed our course westward and came along, drooping and solitary, to M's Ferry, about 25 miles. We rode up to a large house and were asked in to drink brandy. 3 men and 2 women appeared to be set in to drink the pure stuff, glass after glass. We were glad to retreat. There came on a storm of rain, with thunder and lightning. I was unwilling to go to expecting the same kind of Sabbath devotion there. We traveled a most dreadful road to Black River, and had plenty of water above and below us. After riding 15 miles, we came to the Widow B's, where we got a shelter. Still, we had our fears. There is such a quantity of water in the swamp and lowlands that our feet are kept very uncomfortable, and some places are impassable. Isaac Smith, in all these difficulties and trials of swamps, colds, rains, and starvation, was my faithful companion. After riding 27 miles without eating, how good were the potatoes and fried gammon! We then had only 10 miles to Brother Rembert's, where we arrived about 7 o'clock. I confess my soul and body have been sorely tried. What blanks are in this country, and how much worse are rice plantations! If a man of war is a floating hell, these are standing ones. Wicked masters, overseers, and negroes. Cursing, drinking, no Sabbaths, no sermons. But hush, perhaps my journal will never see the light, and if it does, matters may mend before that time, and it is probable I shall be beyond their envy or goodwill. O wretched priests, thus to lead the people on in blindness! Thursday, 6. We had family meeting at Brother R's. I gave them a long discourse on the last words of David, 2 Samuel 23:5. Although my house be not so with God, yet he hath made with me an everlasting covenant, ordered in all things and sure. For this is all my salvation and all my desire, pleasure or delight, although he make it not to grow. 1. I considered how we enter into covenant with God. 2. On man's part it is ordered to repent, believe, love, obey, suffer, etc., and, in a word, to attend to every duty God hath enjoined. 3. That this is all the delight of a gracious soul, that his eternal all is rested upon the covenant relations he bears to the Lord. David appears, 1. To have been looking to Solomon's peaceable kingdom. 2. To Christ who was to come to David's seed. 3. Parents and gracious souls may say, the commonwealth, the church, their families, etc., are not as they could wish, yet God is their portion. What distresses were experienced in the families of ancient saints! See the history of the families of Adam, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Eli, Samuel, David, and others of whom we read. My time is short. This may be my last to speak, or theirs to hear. We are not only creatures of a year, but of a day, an hour. Sunday 9. I preached on Romans 5:20-21. Monday 10. We held a little conference to provide for Charleston, Georgetown, Edisto, and Santee. Some are afraid that if we retain none among us who trade in slaves, the preachers will not be supported, but my fear is that we shall not be able to supply this state with preachers. Tuesday 11. I had to preach to the respectable people of Camden, where I suppose I had 200 hearers in the courthouse. It was heavy work, my body and faith being both weak. Some trifled, some felt, and perhaps more understood. Wednesday 12. We missed our way to the chapel called Granny's Quarter, and made it 30 miles to Horton's, at the Hanging Rock, on a very warm day, without any refreshment except a little biscuit. Thursday 13. Rode 30 miles more to the Waxhaws after preaching at the chapel in the woods. I went to Brother T's, where we had a room to ourselves, and our horses were richly fed. This was a great favor, such as we do not generally receive in this country. Saturday 15. We set out under discouraging prospects, having had a heavy rain the night before. We came to Shepherd's, where we had to swim our horses alongside a canoe, and had they not struggled powerfully, and freed themselves from among the bushes and grapevines, they had certainly drowned. We returned across the stream, and then brought them down the creek, to a place where there were no trees in the way, and we got safe across. Sunday 16. The waters being still high, our passage difficult, and having no inclination to travel on the Sabbath, we continued at S's, where we stayed the night before. Notice was circulated through the neighborhood, and by 11 o'clock there was collected a congregation of 60 or 70 people. Monday 17. We set out and passed Charlotte, in Mecklenburg. Here I learned that meeting was appointed for me at A's. I came to L Hills, where I met with N.W. and D.A., having ridden 34 miles. By the time I reach Justice White's, I shall make out to have ridden about 1,000 miles in 3 months, and to have stopped 6 weeks of the time with great reluctance. I preached at Blank on 2 Timothy 2:12-17. I gave 1. The marks of a Christian, one of which is that he suffers persecution. 2. The marks of heretics and schismatics. The former oppose the established doctrines of the gospel. The latter will divide Christians. 3. That we must continue in what we have been taught by the Word, the Spirit, and faithful ministers of Christ. 4. That the Holy Scriptures are the standard sufficient for ministers and people, to furnish them to every good work. Thursday 20. I directed my course, in company with my faithful fellow laborer, Tobias Gibson, up the Catawba, settled mostly by the Dutch, a barren spot for religion. Having ridden in pain 24 miles, we came, weary and hungry, to O's Tavern, and were glad to take what came to hand. 4 miles forward, we came to Howe's Ford, upon Catawba River, where we could neither get a canoe nor guide. We entered the water in an improper place, and were soon among the rocks and in the whirlpools. My head swam, and my horse was affrighted. The water was to my knees, and it was with difficulty we retreated to the same shore. We then called to a man on the other side, who came and piloted us across, for which I paid him well. My horse being afraid to take the water a second time, Brother Gibson crossed, and sent me his, and our guide took mine across. We went on, but our troubles were not at an end. Night came on, and it was very dark. It rained heavily, with powerful lightning and thunder. We could not find the path that turned out to Connell's. In this situation we continued until midnight or past. At last we found a path, which we followed till we came to dear old Father Harper's plantation. We made for the house and called. He answered, but wondered who it could be. He inquired whence we came. I told him we would tell that when we came in, for it was raining so powerfully we had not much time to talk. When I came dripping into the house, he cried, "God bless your soul, is it Brother Asbury? Wife, get up." Having had my feet and legs wet for 6 or 7 hours causes me to feel very stiff. Friday, 21. We set forward towards Brother White's and took our time to ride 12 miles. End of section 22. Recording by Brian Keenan.